Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and welcome to Elite Dangerous Horizons. The most recent update released for the game last night brought with it a whole bunch of new changes. Most notably of those was the subsurface scattering for ice worlds. This is quite a massive graphical overhaul for the worlds and leaves them looking a whole lot prettier. Another pretty big change was the points of interest spawn generation. They now occur whilst you're flying in your ship, so you can fly over the surface of the planets and see all sorts of activity going on down there. Here's a good example. It seems to be some sort of outpost embedded in the cliffside here, and it's protected by some sentries. At the top you can see some sort of beacon. Now I suspect if I was to get out in my SRV here, I'd be able to at least attempt to try and climb to the top of that. Not that easy in an SRV, but probably doable, and then use the data scanner to scan the beacon at the top, and there'd probably be a reward for doing that. But all round, this point of interest new spawning mechanic is a very welcome change, and like I say, it makes the worlds feel that much more alive. Now I'm here on Europa. You probably saw me entering the planet during the start of this video, and here is one of the famous Europa lines. Now whilst these cracks and canyons are certainly a red in tone, they now look very much more icy than they used to. In fact, these whole graphical changes have eliminated a lot of the plasticky feel that some people were commenting on. In a little while I'm going to travel to a few other planets to let you look what the graphics look like on those, and we'll also get a little bit closer to the surface areas here so you can see how much more detailed these planets actually look. Now there's still a slight problem with some pop-in and some shadow issues as well, but overall it really is getting much better. Here then is two very small planets, planetoids, extremely close together, a very interesting location. Now these moon objects are only around about 200 kilometers in radius, and they're nearly that distance apart from each other. Just look on the horizon there, how close that other moon looks. You can even see the mountains there. Interesting and amazing to think that you can actually go and stand on those mountains there or land there and drive across them in your SRV. So I think even from this distance you can see that these worlds are very detailed indeed. But that's nothing compared to now what the terrain looks like down here. Just look at that, really nice, much better looking. Now of course not every single part of the world looks as detailed as this. There's still some rather flat and somewhat uninspired looking areas, but then that makes exploring worthwhile. You can't have everywhere looking perfect, I guess. Winging up with your mates is a real treat too. It's something I don't get a lot of time to do, but watching your mate fly off like that and down into a canyon really is quite impressive, and it's something that's hugely magnified when you're flying on the Oculus Rift, which I did shortly after this video. Now points of interest are actually consistent right across the wing, so if one of you finds one you will get to see it. And in fact, when you're looking at your radar and the little point of interest circles appear, they actually appear right across the wings. Points of interest now have a bit more variety to them. You don't keep getting the same old wrecked ships. You saw a different one up on the embedded ice mountains, and there is another type there. As we left this world, we got to see a nice alignment of planets. Just look at that. In the middle distance there is quite a large gas giant. You can't see the rings of the graphical changes, and I think this area really does speak for itself. Now I've got to admit I'm not too big a fan of the way the shadows actually look red here, and there is actually a slight red hue over the world here, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. It might be ambient light from the galactic core, or it might be the fact I was fairly nearish to a red star here, but I don't think all the shadows should look quite as red as they do. In fact, the overabundance of ambient light continues to be a problem right throughout the game, and although here it looks really nice due to the amount of detail on the planet, on locations like this next world the amount of ambient light really is a massive problem. Now I'm going to file this one as a bug report, because whether or not it actually is a bug, I think it renders the game pretty much unplayable. Just look how bright these areas are. I think there's an argument to be made that this reflects realism in a way, because the star here was actually quite close to this world. I think around about 100 light seconds away, if I remember correctly, which probably means that all the ice here would indeed be quite reflective, but it means you can't actually see anything. It was very difficult to navigate towards this little resource here. Even using the scanner is quite difficult because mostly it's blocked out due to all the overabundance of bloom. But we kept asking for interesting looking ice worlds, and I guess that is what we've got. But this world really is the exception in terms of vibrancy and ambient light. As you saw at the start of the video, there really are some quite nice ice worlds out there. I took the opportunity to head back to the Running Man Nebula and check out the planet from the previous video, and as you can see, it now looks quite different indeed. Now, one thing that does continue to be impressive is the variety of worlds. I really don't think it can be said that all worlds are actually the same, and this world here is a great example. It had a massive crater on there filled with this really dense mist, and it actually made it a wonderful location to go racing around in the SRVs with. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this video. I wanted to keep it fairly short so we could focus on the graphical and point of interest changes. There'll be another short video later today, and then tomorrow I'll be back with you with a longer video. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time. I'm about to land here on this moon. It's aerial, it's in our solar system, and this part up ahead is unlike anything I've seen so far. It's all full of mountains and ridges. What I'm doing here is looking for points of interest, hoping to get involved in a bit of combat and try and find myself a good bit of loot. Now, this area is quite thick with dust and fog, essentially. This is, I think, what's known as outgassing, where gases escape from rocks and areas of the planet and it hangs in the lower areas. There's not enough of it to create an atmosphere, but there certainly is enough of it to give some interesting type of effects. So I found a point of interest area here, and I'm about to deploy the SRV.